Hey, how's it going?
Hello, Doug. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too. Well, I feel like I know you because I follow you on LinkedIn, and your posts are fantastic. So just really thank you for taking the time out after a hopefully I'm sure a pretty busy Monday, as Mondays usually are, to chat.
I mean, like, it's summer, so like the days are less busy than usual, I would say. Trying to make some time to, spend time with the family, do a little bit of work, trying to balance things out a little bit. But tell me, how was your vacation week last week?
Oh, it was great. It was actually 2 weeks. So
2 weeks.
yeah. It's
You're spoiled.
yeah, I'm pretty spoiled, and I'm recovering from the jet lag. So so
Oh, that's fun. That's good.
yeah,
So,
it was a 2-week trip, all around the UK, so
oh, cool.
got to visit Ireland, Scotland, London, a little bit of Paris, little yeah,
That's
it
good.
was it was crazy, man.
Good.
It was a lot of fun, though.
Well, good for you. Good for you. It's good to take some time off. We are big advocates for vacations. Had the happy producers for us, it's something that is extremely important. That should never be argued, negotiated. That should never be used as leverage. That
Agreed.
when you deserve it. No, we
Absolutely, yeah.
don't. Like vacations are a need. They're not a want. So
That
they're very important.
yeah, especially VFX artists, because I think we're probably some of the hardest working, historically, probably a little too hardworking, and we don't really guard our mental health like we should. We've learned that
Yeah.
during COVID,
Yeah.
so that is very good advice. But yeah, well, I know who you are, but why don't you introduce yourself, the happy producers? I want to hear all about you.
Well, I'm a animation producer. I've been in the animation industry for about 25 years already.
Wow.
Like in Montreal, mostly in Montreal, although I did travel abroad a little bit for a couple of years. But I've been in the industry for all that time. Started as an artist, really,
Oh, wow.
2D artist, actually. Yes,
Very
back
cool.
when like even 2D animation was done on paper. I'm that old. I know it's crazy. I evolved in the industry in Montreal, and back then the industry in Montreal was really like not what it became.
Yeah,
We had like 3 studios, probably like a few hundred artists, and that's it. So it was a difficult moment for me to jump in. Moreover, that when I came in, there was like the
yeah,
big tax credit scandal with Sinar, which was one of the studio here in Montreal that were kind of using like false names for tax credit purposes, and they got caught, and it really imploded the industry here right when I started. So the first few
yeah.
years were a bit rocky. So I was doing like contract after contract. I really loved storyboarding. That became my thing. So I did storyboarding for quite some times.
Very cool.
And then I fell into CG animation, but not as an artist, but more as a supervisor, art director, storyboard artist, those sort of things. So I never myself did any kind of like CG work or used any kind of CG software, but I was involved in CG production, and I really liked the possibilities and the kind of projects we were making. And that gave me a taste of management. And that
First
gave me
taste
a
of free,
taste.
man.
Yes, exactly. I know. I know. And then I joined the dark side of the force, and I became a producer. But to my surprise, because for me, like since the beginning of my career, I saw Aladdin when I was 15 years old. And I freaked out because I was like, this is what I want to do with my life. That's what I want to do. And I was so focused on drawing all that time, really focused on my craft and really focused on drawing. I did not realize that my actual real talent was management and leadership and business and all those sorts of things, communication and blah blah blah, right?
Yeah,
So it was only like, I would say, I don't know, 15 years ago, 13 years ago, that I moved to production. I really enjoyed it, and then I started a whole new path of learning about budgeting, learning about scheduling, learning about client management, learning about leadership, learning about team, leading a whole team and trying to gather everyone around the same project. And I really, really fell in love with that. And so much so that I can tell you that it's been 10 years. I did not draw. I did not draw for the last 10 years.
oh, no. You need to
No,
draw.
I'm done. I'm done. But I write now. And as
Good.
you can
You
see
do
from my LinkedIn, I love writing and I enjoy writing. So
and I see you have a guitar behind you too. That's
I have a guitar, but I mean, like, I have to be honest. That's a prop.
Oh, is it?
It's a prop because
I was gonna
it's like
show you my really sweet my guitar
yours
back here.
yours is nice, but I'll be honest, I play the ukulele, but I don't play the guitar. But the guitar was lying around, and I thought I need to put something on my wall because it's too empty. Because if you've seen my LinkedIn profile, you know that I'm working in my shed in the yard.
You have an amazing summer office. I'm very jealous. It's great.
It's like it's all open right now. I can see the lake from here. My neighbors are the hummingbirds and the groundhogs that come once in a while. I had
That's
the,
good.
the biggest bee that came into my office the other day. It was like that big, and I never saw a bee that big. I was kind of scared. But anyways, so yeah, and all that to say is that I met my wife Virginie when we were working together, and we had the same mindset, the same value when it came to producing. And surprisingly to us, most of people didn't share the same kind of like positive, human centric mindset where we always thought the client was amazing and the team was amazing. And there was always a way to bring those two together. And too often we felt like, the client doesn't know what they want and bitching about the client, or like, the supervising team bitching about like the production team, or, all those kind of like inner war and people working one against the other. And
Yeah.
us, we saw an opportunity to try to bring everyone together so that we work better when we work together. And that includes the client. It's too easy to make the client a bad guy. So we realized that our way of working was different and was bringing better results. Like we were finishing on time, on budget, happy clients, great quality. So we could see that people felt better and people wanted to work with us.
Yeah.
COVID came, and like we
Haven't
all
heard of
kind
it.
of like
What was that?
lost, never heard it. Like, yeah, don't don't look it up.
I shouldn't
But
Google it. No.
yeah, so like that came, and even for us, we realized that we were like too busy, a bit overwhelmed with work, and we felt like the same thing with so many people around us going into burnout and working too much. We thought, okay, this is the time for us to do something else and differently for the industry. How can we serve the industry better than by just producing? Like, yeah, it's great. I can have a great impact on my team, and I can see that, but I want to have a greater impact so that more people start replicating what we do, because we like, we copy the behaviors that we witness. So you're a junior artist and you see a supervisor yelling at a lead or yelling at a coordinator, and no one says anything about that, what you think is that's a correct behavior.
Yeah.
So I'm going to copy that behavior. And us, we wanted to be kind of role models of different kind of behaviors where we can be positive, we can be smiling, we can be happy, but we can be like rigid about the budget and the schedule and all those sorts of things, but always try to be like a real person, basically.
Yeah.
And that's why we founded the Happy Producers. We thought we're going to teach what we came up with that works so well. We're going to teach that to other producers, other leaders, and all that. And that came to creating like three main course. We have the Prod Bootcamp, which is like the fundamental course for the right mindset for production. So it's not just a course for coordinators. It's a course, we had like head of productions taking that course and really enjoyed the mindset aspect of it, where uh, you know, the thing we say often is like, it's not only the things that you do at work, but who you are at work that matters.
Yeah.
And that's what we weave into the course. And the Prod Bootcamp does really that, teaching stuff like how to build trust and set boundaries and active listening and all those sorts of things. But also, how do you write emails, and how do you send notes, how you deal
Yes.
with client feedback and all those things, because they're important too. The
100%.
second course we have is on scheduling, Happy Project Schedule. I guess that the name says it all. And the last course that we have is my baby. It's Bidding Winning Animation Project, which is the course on bidding and project scoping. So that's like a huge course that uses all my experience as an executive producer, as a business development person. I did a lot of business development and I really enjoyed it. And I learned a lot of things about building trust with clients, how to attract good client, good project, and all those sorts of things, how to deal with the changing scope of work and blah, blah, blah. So
Sure.
that's the course that we teach. So that, in a nutshell, a big nutshell, that's us, that's me, that's the Happy Producers.
And that is exactly why I wanted to have you on. This is we've been having these interviews with people, just like like we're in, this kind of rebuilding mode where everybody's asking after the strikes, after COVID, the landscape has completely changed. and we're now asking the question of like, what do we want visual effects, CG animation? What do we want the industry to look like?
Yeah.
Because you can't rebuild something if you don't start talking about those types of things. And we have a lot of kind of systemic issues. Uh, just like any any family, we all have like it's a very long history, and I think there's some things we can do better. And I love that we have people like you that are offering 25 years plus of experience to say like, hey, let's talk about. I was very happy to hear like the client's not the boogeyman.
Yeah.
That's so true. And a good producer makes or breaks a production. Like
Yeah.
I've been on shows that, we've had fantastic producers and not so fantastic producers, and they're doing their best, but it is all about like what your mindset is, what's your
Yeah.
approach. And it should be from a very positive, boundaries with the client, establishing a good trust relationship. And I think that's missed so much. So, yeah, I want to hear all about your philosophy. I want to hear your thoughts about, like, especially now, too, that we have a lot of artists that, because of remote work, we have the opportunity to do a lot of kind of these little micro studio
Mm.
setups, a lot of more freelance opportunities around the world. But now you have artists that are put into the position of also needing a producer hat.
Yeah.
Uh, we talked to Craft Hive a couple weeks ago before my vacation, and he's a business guy, artist guy, YouTuber, and he's just constantly having to juggle things. So I'd love to hear your thoughts of what's some advice that you would give to some freelance artists that are starting to have to do that client relationship. Is where should they what are some tips?
Well, it's important to I think it's important to skill up, and that's why I don't want to be self-serving by saying that, because we offer those kind of like courses and stuff. But that's why we offer course, is to
Plug,
help
man.
people
Yeah,
out there. You
plug
see what
away.
I mean?
I want to highlight. Yeah,
So that's the goal. Like if you're
yeah,
thinking about my course bidding winning, which is on sale right now, the that is true. The bidding winning is really a course that I've created, and that's gonna answer your question. I created bidding winning because I was an artist and I became a producer, and I realized that we need to understand where money is coming from. We need
yeah,
to understand how the business works so we can do business better.
yeah.
And I've realized that I was like a project manager and I couldn't mention money. Like everyone like was ush around money. And at some point it's kind of like, why? I mean, like money, like there's a limited amount of money available for that production, right? Because that's one thing that we need to break, is the fact that clients don't have a secret pile of money hidden.
Hmm.
If they tell you they have 5K, if they tell you they have 15K, if they tell you they have 5 million, that's what they've got 90% of the time.
Yeah,
Right? Only dishonest client would pretend that they have more money just so you're going to be working on the cheap. It happens.
yeah.
But usually it's not the case. Why it's not the case? Because most clients, they will want the best for their project and they want you to have the best conditions possible for you to do your best work possible.
Hmm.
For me, that's in general, that's what happens. Again,
Yeah,
there's some like other folks that don't work like this, but we shouldn't treat everyone like the crooks that are trying to rip you off and trying to make you work for cheap, right?
yeah,
So that's one thing that's super important. So when I started learning about the business, it was because I wanted to understand those things. So I wanted to, as I say, I wanted to play a better game, and that's why I wanted to learn the rules of the game. And I started digging into budget, into overhead cost, into understanding all those mechanics. What's a contingency, and how you manage a profit, and all those sorts of things. And that's valuable information because then you start understanding what it is to cost something.
yeah.
Costing something is not like, hey, I'm like, you're $70 an hour, that's your salary, and that's it. No, there's all the other stuff that you must add on top of that. So you need to start accounting for those things, and you need to sharpen your minds on the business side for all those sorts of things so you understand where money is going.
Yeah.
That's one thing. But there's also the understanding of the economy and what the client is looking for. So you may say to a client, well, my cost is $500 per day. The client might not be able to afford that, or might find someone else with a cheaper day rate or something like that somewhere else, right? So there's in business, there's always a kind of mechanic where you must make sure that your costs are optimal and fair for the service and the value that you deliver,
Yeah.
right? And value is important. Value is not something that's necessarily connected with money. Value is the value that we add as a person to a certain service. For example, if two people are, they both cost $50 an hour, but one person is doing like 2 passes of retake, and the other one, same thing, 3 passes of retake, adding more value, or including another service on top of that, adding more value. Or for me as a client, I'm looking at this with both charging the same thing. I'm like, I'm going to go with that person because they add more value, right? So
Yeah.
those sorts of things, those kind of thinking, business mindset is at the core of Bidding Winning Animation Project, the course that I created, so that people understand what's the sales cycle of an animation project. How does it work behind the scene? How animation projects are financed? I go into the larger scale, talking about TV series or film in the independent sector or working with major studios. But that's important. We understand how those cycles happen so that we know it takes time, it's long, and it's all about relationship building.
Yeah, I'm glad you say relationship building too, because those types of conversations can establish a lot of trust early on too. Like to say, like, we some of the better producers I've worked with are pretty firm about their change orders. So early on in the client bidding phase, they'll say like you have 3 passes. This is what you're going to see in each pass, very clear. If after that third pass you say final, well, if you come back later and you've changed your mind, we're going to have to institute a change order. Are you okay? It's a clear boundary early on that it protects the artists and also the client.
And a good way to go around this, because sometimes I've seen people not being always comfortable about necessarily, and the client doesn't want that for you to pull the change order card too early,
Yeah,
when like the client will mess up as much as we mess up, right? So the client's going to mess up. So you need to be firm about your passes of retake, just as you say, but it's knowing how to be firm, but how to be flexible at the same time.
for
So
sure.
the way we break it down, and I'm going to give you a snippet of what we have in the course. The way we break it down, we say like, for a scope of work, we go with the acronym SCOPE. Well, I know it's clever. So S can be the script, which is your story or whatever you have to do, right? C will be the concept, more likely the visuals, right?
Hmm.
O will be the objective. That's going to be time and money. And then SCOP. P will be the people. So who's involved, right? Who's involved? Who do you need to do that job? You need 1%, 2%, a whole studio, right? Who
Yeah,
are
get
the
it.
people that you need? And the last one is the most important, E, evolving. There
So
are things
flexibility.
that the client does not know yet. There are
Mm,
things that you don't know yet. And the issue that I've seen time and time again, and that works for big budgets, big projects, small project, is to assume that everything is 100% crystal clear from the get-go. It can't.
yeah, it's a creative project. You're right.
Yeah, exactly. There will be a point at which your client's going to be like, oh, I haven't seen this like that. Can we go back to something? So when you do a project, big or small, and you don't plan for some kind of contingency with your client, you're screwing yourself right off the bat. So
Very
for
good.
anyone like, starting their own business, freelancing a little bit, if you do projects and you don't have a contingency, it's bad.
Mm,
And the best thing is, what I love is to have like a contingency bucket, right?
okay.
So with the client, I've got a contingency bucket. So we've got like 2, 3 passes of retake per step, whatever, right? Every other week or every month, if it's a longer project, I'm gonna make sure to show the client that's the progress report. We're at 20% in production and we've spent 20% of the money. Okay, we're on track. Everything is good. The client knows. It's completely clear with the client. And we have $1,000 left in the contingency bucket, right?
Just in case, rainy day
Just in
fund.
case.
Yeah,
Exactly. Then, we hit a spot in which, okay, the client wants 4 or 5 retake on something. It's like, I'm going to have to dig into the contingency bucket. Is that okay?
yeah.
Okay, let's use it. That full transparency with the client makes it in a way that the client is you're really partnering up with the client. They know where you're at with the work, so that when they see it coming, when the money is running out,
Yeah.
because it should be never your responsibility as a small studio owner, a freelance artist, or a big studio owner to start chopping on your profit, to start chopping on your own costs for the benefit of a client. And you were talking about rebuilding the industry.
Yeah.
Those are those behaviors that some studio owner thought that they did not have a choice. They created something with this, and I'm not blaming them. I understand why, right? Because you want to preserve the relationship with the client, because you
Yeah.
want to keep those people. You want to keep on working with those Marvels and Disneys and whatnot because they're so cool and they're creating great projects. Well, you know what happened? Because we allowed that kind of behavior, the client got used to it, and now they expect it in return.
Yeah.
Just cut on your profit. Is there another industry in the whole world where you can say, like, go to the restaurant now and say, like, I want something more, but cut it on your profit? They're gonna be like, F you,
Yeah. Get out. Yeah.
you know? F you. Ask that to a contractor. Hire someone to build your house. Tell
Yeah.
them, yeah, take that off your profit. He's gonna be like, F you with a hammer,
Yeah.
right? But we allowed that behavior and we have to change that. And for me, the golden rule for anyone is be transparent.
Yeah. Good communication.
Yeah.
Yeah. I loved one of your posts too on LinkedIn, where you're rebuilding the deck, and you
Yeah.
make a similar analogy of rebuilding this. And it came to mind. We were talking on the Discord boards about this, and just prepping, because it's a nice big community of artists that are all talking about this stuff behind the scenes. And I had never heard of this before, but apparently Frame Store back in the day used to have a physical book. I know it's weird, but it was a physical hard copy book they had in their lounge for clients, and it was how to make a movie. And the analogy, every page was talking about it like building a house.
Yeah.
Sort of like, so in this part of the process, we're laying the foundation. This is where, if you have some ideas about, like, hey, I want an extra bathroom here, this is where we need to start talking about this stuff, because later, once that foundation is poured, it's going to be very pricey to go in there, and this is why. And it was this really very cute, example of it. It reminded me of like those old Goofy cartoons of how to build a flyer, or how to build a stereo. And it was that exact same analogy. And I loved that you were talking about that, because it's so true. It really is.
And we have to keep on doing that. And you're mentioning something, and I think it's a great example. How we need to educate our clients. The
Client
producer
education. Yeah.
that comes to you, they are professionals at creating IPs, producing projects, financing projects, all the business aspect. They understand contracts, legal stuff. They get that, right?
Yep.
They don't know what's complex. They
Yeah.
don't know what takes time. They have
That's
no
true.
clue. But we, as studio people, we must educate them in the most kindest way possible so they understand the process. And what we see sometimes is like producers trying to provide the studio with their solution. Oh, we should be using Unreal, or we should be
Yeah.
using AI, or we should be using all those sorts of things. I'm not against any of those tools at all,
They're
but
tools. Yeah.
they need to come from the people that are making. The people that are making are choosing the tools. The
That's right.
people that are like the client, they say, put it over there.
Yeah.
They don't tell you like how you're going to do it. So it's important that we create those relationship with our client where they come in with, hey, I want to make that beautiful big house. Okay, let's look at the plans. And then we work on this together. But then, they're not going to tell you what kind of hammer you're going to be using. But
Yeah.
that's an issue we have with our relationship with clients, is that line is very, very blurry. And not
Yeah.
only that, but we use a bad language, an unclear language when we talk with clients. And one of the things that and maybe you've seen one of my posts about that, is I talk about quality a lot and how we should ban any discussion around quality,
Yeah.
because quality doesn't mean nothing, in the sense that it's so different and so subjective
Very
that
subjective. Yeah.
Exactly. So instead of talking about quality, we should be talking about aesthetics and features.
Mm,
Aesthetics, what it looks like. All the stuff that you cannot count is aesthetics. You cannot count the amount of colors. You cannot count like, a style. You cannot count those things, right? The aesthetics will influence the cost a tiny wee bit.
yeah.
The features is all the stuff that you can count. How many assets do you have? How many effects? How many shots? How many minutes? Your quotas, right? Animation quota, lighting quota, all those things. You can count. That will influence your cost immensely.
Yeah.
Usually, when a client speaks about a project, they talk about the aesthetics. But the studio, with the people or the supervisor, they think about features. So
Mm,
the client says, I want it to look like Into the Spider-Verse. They talk about the aesthetics of it.
yeah.
But when a studio hears, I want it to look like Into the Spider-Verse, we freak out because we think about the features.
Every little bit. Yeah. Because there's
Yeah,
a lot. There's a
yeah.
lot in there.
There's a
Yeah.
lot in there.
Yeah, one of my favorite producers ever. She sat down. I'll go ahead and plug her. Her name is Robin Morrison. She's over at Real Effects, and we opened up a Montreal studio, and while we were still a small Dallas studio, she came around to the actual artists, and she sat down. It was very rare that any producer would do this. So you always felt like you were in trouble, but but she would come down and sit, and she would be genuinely interested, or just like, all right, so when I am saying to the client X, Y, and Z. I really would like to know what is X, Y, and Z. What goes into all those things? And there was a lot of communication in between the artists and the producers, and then from the producer to the client. It was this little game of telephone that, if it's nice and clear, everybody was nice and happy. And you mentioned quality, and I thought that was. I'm really glad you mentioned that, because it is such a kind of amorphous. You can't really quantify it, right? But the quality that I've seen, the highest quality work that I've seen, usually comes on shows that the artists love working
Yeah.
on,
Yeah.
and they pour themselves into it, and
Yeah.
that comes from these healthy boundaries and clear communication, and it's a really big point.
Yeah. Because I mean, that's the goal. The goal is to create that highest possible perceived quality. That's the goal. No one wants to create a shitty show.
Yeah,
No one wants to like have their work. No one wants to like put their a bad work on screen. People want to do a good job, and that's why, like as you said, communication is so important, because the client doesn't want something ugly. And I've heard it so many times where like the client doesn't know blue. Why do you want blue? Blue is so ugly. But the client means like blue, green, a little bit gray, desaturated. But we don't know that, but we take it literal, and we think the client's is a dummy that does not understand anything, instead of just being like, wait, I don't understand. Blue doesn't make sense. Let's talk.
yeah,
Let's figure this out. Right. Oh, that's what you mean. Okay, that's great. Right.
yeah,
And for me, that's what I created from the very beginning, is that very smooth communication channel with my clients, where we would speak like I had a very difficult project, was many years ago. I was working doing animation, but for the gaming industry. And
okay,
that was difficult because the gaming industry is very iterative. Since they're working with game engines, they can change everything until the last second, so they don't care. So it was difficult for them to work on in a linear pipeline like animation, like CG animation, right? Because
yeah,
for them, they were like, oh, we're going to wait until we see it lit, and then we are going to be making some calls about animation or lip sync and all that,
yeah,
which drove us nuts. So I decided to start having a 15-minute call with my client every day, 15 minutes, every day. We never missed it. It changed everything. We created a relationship. We became buddies. There was trust. We could discuss real issues. They understand when we had trouble and challenges. Once you personalize the relationship, everything is possible.
yeah.
It's
They
not
become
always,
invested, right?
yeah, you
Yeah,
have to be invested. And it's this, like, if I do like a small talking about remote work, right? Some people, they're just love, like they fantasize about going back to the office, and even idealize how well it used to work when we all used to be at the office. Well, I'm sorry, there was a lot of toxicity in the office when we worked in the office.
true.
What makes the difference is not where we are physically, it's the quality of our relationship and the way we're intentional about how we relate
Yeah,
when we communicate.
yeah,
And that's by email, that's by Zoom call, that's in person. It's to show that I care about you.
Yeah, there's so many different cultures too, since we are like a global industry. I remember we opened up the Montreal studio about a year before COVID happened. So we started laying that infrastructure down. My wife, who I work with as well, I worked with back then, she's now at a different animation studio. I'm at Samsung. I'm in the advertising world now. But she was up there building chairs. Like she was we were up there and laying that groundwork. And we had a lot of conversations about like, you know, we some people don't do well, just like a text, Slack, the different cultures comes across a completely different way.
Yeah.
Like the power of emojis and GIFs, I think cannot be understated because we started like actually having these little team seminars of just like, okay, so that guy's rubbing you the wrong way because he just, you wrote out a very thoughtful Slack message. You explained everything, and you can tell, you're putting your heart out there, and all you get back is an okay, and, and they just be like, there would be a rift, So we had to have these conversations about
Yeah.
how do you manage remote work differently? How do you manage across different cultures, and that goes to clients as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's something that's so important also is that we always have to retune, like always. We all have to like put each other in sync all the time because we're gonna go out of sync always.
Yeah,
And there's that magical idea of we're gonna do it once and then we're good. Like
yeah,
we're gonna do one conference, we're gonna be talking about this and now we're good. But like what why is that a problem? We spoke about that 5 years ago.
yeah.
Like no, you have to keep on repeating and you have to keep on resyncing.
Fine
And those
tuning.
things are super, super, super important. And as you said, like there's another thing, like don't take things personal,
Yeah, it's
right?
true.
Because the guy
Absolutely.
saying okay, he's probably like, okay, cool. Oh, I see what you mean. Okay.
Yeah. Well,
You
he's
know,
he's probably busy. He's probably like
it's very
juggling
busy.
5 or 6 things. He's like, okay, gotcha. Like that's a
Absolutely.
that's a solid person.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very possible. And that's why like it's like learning more about those communications, talking more about that so that we're not taking things personal, so that we try to resolve our issues. I mean, like we don't have to get along with everyone either. That's
Yeah.
very okay.
Yeah.
But there shouldn't be animosity or anything like that. We still can work like as a team if we can.
We're making cartoons. I mean, I was in animation for 15 years, and I was always like, how it is really hard to have a bad day when you're making cartoons for a living. Like that's we're not digging ditches. We're not curing cancer. It's cartoons. We should all kind of have a level of respect and also fun. Don't take it
Fun,
too personally.
fun, absolutely. And I think that we lost that at some point. And we had like I met with so many people when I started doing business development and I started growing a big network worldwide and speaking with people that, worked on the biggest films and the biggest productions and the biggest projects. Would it be Disney? Would it be DreamWorks and all that? And you start like asking them about their personal stories.
Yeah.
And something that shocked me was that I met people that worked on some of my favorite films with beautiful values in those films, like friendship values, family values,
Yeah.
values about growth, about learning, about exploring. And those people that worked on those projects, they tell me, yeah, I got cancer from that project.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
literally, I'm not joking.
I've seen the exact same thing happen firsthand. Yeah.
And I thought, how can a film that feels so positive for me when I see it as a viewer could have been made with something so bad and so toxic behind the screen? I'm like, that's for me, that was a total nonsense that kind of gave a lot of fuel for us at the Happy Producers thinking, no, no, we got to change this.
Yeah.
We got to change that idea that, as you say, we're very fortunate to work in animation, but that can turn into a toxic message when it's like, well, you're lucky to be working in that industry, buddy. So get your ass on the floor and work another 12 hours.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, yeah,
So
it's a place. I think a lot of artists don't feel like they have a place of strength I don't feel like they feel valued. They I mean, I personally can speak my own experience, like early 20s, I was hungry. I'm still hungry, but I was really hungry back then. And I was grateful to have my first shot because it's very hard to get your first shot. And I thought I was invincible. I could work those 16-hour days, you know, 5, 6, 7, 8 weeks. who needs a Saturday? I don't need it. And this is just magic of the movies. And I suffered like very extreme burnout
Yeah.
and depression. Then you start popping the SSRIs, to like get through the depression. That raises your blood pressure, and all of a sudden you're sitting there and like I'm falling apart, and I'm not 30. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
what has happened? And there is that thread in this industry for a long time of work to the bone. You're making movies, keep going, and not minding your health. And
Yeah.
I think post COVID, we're now having these exact conversations of just like we can't do that. It's not. We got to go
Absolutely.
outside sometimes. Like we have to. It's good
Yeah.
for you.
Because it's personally, I got sick of waiting for my next vacation.
Yeah.
And as we said in the introduction, more than that, like kind of begging for my vacation. Since I was a producer or project manager, it was kind of expected for me that I cannot go during production. I need
Yeah.
to wait for production is done. So I had to plan my vacation like a year ahead. And production is production, so my production would always delay. So I would end up leaving because I had plane tickets booked and all that when my project was delivering, and everything turned out to be fine. But the point is, I was so tired of dreaming about my vacation and feeling like you're kind of holding your breath,
Yeah.
waiting for that moment where you're going to go, whew, and then you go on vacation for 2 weeks. And then you're like all happy and everything. It takes you a week to come back down. And then the following
I'm in
week, you
that week
walk
right now,
over.
guys.
Exactly. And then you go back to it. And then you have to start again. And
Yeah.
I'm like, no. And one of the things, and that's actually like a course that is coming this fall. It's going to be a course about work-life balance in the creative industries.
Yeah.
And because I became very involved into trying to find a recipe that worked for me, that worked for us. Hence the me working in my shed in the yard, right?
Yeah.
Because there's a space in which we must learn how to take better care of ourselves
Yeah.
as we're doing this. And I'll give you simple examples, little tips. Stuff that I used to do that I stopped doing. I used to be such a phone addict. My phone would not last 10 hours, right? Waking up in
Hmm.
the morning, picking up emails, LinkedIn, that thing, all the stuff, Facebook, blah, blah, blah.
100% guilty. Yeah. Hmm.
Starting to work even before I had my coffee, right? And then feeling so overwhelmed, same thing at night, checking emails. Oh my God, that effing client just sent me a note. And then you're stressing about it. And then you go to bed and you think about it, you have a bad night, and then you continue the cycle. Now my phone lasts for 4 days.
Impressive. I've never made it that far. Wow.
Like
That's
my phone is not great. It's more like I use my phone for calls and text and whatnot. But I created simple rules for myself in which I don't check my emails, my work emails, before I'm done with the
yeah.
thing that is most important for me in the morning. Would it be work wise? So I have got like a very rigid morning routine where I wake up, do some like smart reading, a little bit of meditation, doesn't have to be long. I take care of my kids, I do all that stuff. Then I take care of the main thing that's important for me. And lately it's been my LinkedIn posts. So every day, my LinkedIn post is the first thing I do when I get to work. I don't read my emails, I don't check the rest of my LinkedIn. I don't see all that stuff. I write my LinkedIn post because this for me is the most important thing of my work experience. Once I'm done with this, then I open myself up to the rest of the world.
Mm.
No one around me saw a difference, but I did. What I mean by no one saw, like no one was expecting me to look at my emails at 6 a.m. when I woke up,
Yeah.
right? So no one sees a difference, but I do see and feel an enormous difference. And not checking my emails after that once I'm done with work.
Yeah.
Now I sleep like a baby. And I used to have such a bad sleep. So there's something in which we must learn in the creative industries how to make sure that we include those kind of boundaries, those kind of rules for ourselves, so that we have a healthier
Yeah.
relationship with our work, so that we don't get so burnt out, so that at the end of the day, we're not so drained out, so that every day there's like a mini vacation. Every week, there's a mini vacation. So that when vacation time comes, you're not burnt out. You're just super happy to be on vacation and not having to work. And
Yeah.
we have to teach ourselves those kind of skills.
Well, and you have to model it too, like you're doing. I'm really glad you shared that because in the VFX industry, that mentorship, that apprentice mentorship relationship is so important. It's not just for technically how to do a shot. It's about those ways to be in order to have a long career in this industry.
Exactly.
And I worry that a lot of that stuff, especially after the strikes, after COVID, if it's eroding. And the more we can offer those types of things, I think is especially the new generation. Like we're I mean, I'm 40. I'm not sure how old you are. Can I
I'm
ask?
45.
45. All right. You look great.
Thank you.
And I'm sure it's from healthy living and good sleep.
I
It's
try.
it's so important.
So
And
important.
and scheduling your day, blocking it out, the putting the phone down. That's just such good advice. I struggle with it every day personally. I have to make myself get up and run. I have a scheduled
Yeah,
amount of time. I run
that's
for an
good.
hour. I'll take calls if I need to during that time, but 8 to 9, that is my time. And then, then I start then I'll check emails and then I go off and start doing work because
Yeah.
there's there's definitely I think there's a pathology to the mind of a VFX artist that I've been seeing more and more of. There's very common similarities, and one of them is not setting good boundaries, not feeling like you're allowed to like take time for yourself.
You've got it. Feeling like you're allowed. Something that I tell everyone is, I'll give you an example. I never take meetings on Mondays,
Mm.
ever.
Well, thank you for taking the call today. Then
You're an exception, but I
I
never
appreciate it.
take meetings on Mondays because Mondays for me is the day where I focus, I look at what I have to do this week. I'm gonna lay out the foundation for some stuff.
Yeah,
No one knows I don't take meetings on Mondays because when they ask me, like, provide me some time to be available, I'm gonna give them Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday.
yeah,
Then the next week, but because I don't take calls on Fridays either, right? But people don't know my schedule. They
yeah,
don't know. Maybe I'm already fully booked on Monday. Maybe I'm already fully booked on Friday. You know what? I am taking care of personal stuff,
yeah,
right? And once in a while, like us, because it was like an opportunity, and I'm happy to do it. But then I'm happy and I'm fine because I'm not crossing my own boundary.
yeah,
I'll explain something about burnout and the science of burnout. What leads to burnout is not overworking. What leads to burnout is when your personal boundaries are crossed in regard to your relationship with your values, your personal life, your personal time.
yeah,
So when that is crossed too often, it ends up burning you out. If you work a lot, you get tired. But if your boundaries are constantly crossed, where you feel like you have no more time, you don't own your time anymore, you can't see your friends, you can't see your family, you feel like you're stuck in front of your screen to deliver shots, someone has to tell you that you must be doing this, then you start crossing your own boundaries over and over and over and over again. That
hmm
leads to burnout.
that's very true.
Yeah. So we have a huge responsibility, personal responsibility, and something that we're very big on, which is, okay, can't do anything about the tax credits, can't do anything about the tax credit disappearing in Canada, right?
Yeah,
So not disappearing, they just lowered, but it's still huge
it's a
impact.
huge hit.
Can't
Yeah,
do anything about that. Can't do anything about the strike. We can't do anything about Netflix that's not buying shows anymore. We can't do anything about the bubble with the streamers that created like so much work a few years ago. Now the work is all gone, but they left that big hole, right?
yeah,
Can't do anything about those things, right? But I can do something about how I treat myself. I can do something about how I set my own boundaries regarding to work. I'm responsible for all those things, and I need to attend to those things as a priority.
yeah,
And there's too much of that. I don't want to say complaining because everyone is entitled to say what they have to say. I'm very compassionate and very forgiving of people's behavior to a fault, my wife would say. But that kind of dialogue that I see online, that I see on LinkedIn, where it's the client's fault, it's the industry. That's what I love. The industry's fault. You know what,
yeah.
buddy?
We are
You
the
are the
industry.
industry.
Yeah, that's us.
No, that's us. And we decide what to do. We
Yeah,
decide how we shape our work experience. And you know what? You're not happy where you work, get out,
yeah,
right? And that used to be the case. And now it's difficult. now there's less job, and people are kind of like, they want a job, they want to find something. But still, I would tell anyone, don't take any job just because. Don't
Yeah.
work in any situation just because.
And that is so hard to, especially coming off of the strike. I mean, we have some members that have been out of work for a year plus. We have some members that are driving a bus now, like they're
Yeah,
to make ends meet.
I know.
It's incredible what artists have been put through these past couple years, but it is still so important to take care of yourself, because if you
Yeah,
don't, you won't love what you're doing. This is a very hard job to do. It looks fun and easy, but it's extremely technical,
yeah,
artistic.
yeah,
There's a big, a mindset around how to bid it out for a business.
yeah,
There's so many things, you know, so many complexities that I love about this industry, that I worry about this echo chamber that's happening right now online is just gonna just push people out, and they won't stay in, and they won't be hungry to learn about new tools, to retool, so that when these industries do come back, when the strikes are finally done and there's jobs, people are going to want movies, they're going to want cartoons. It will happen. They're going to be too tired to actually go back and do the thing that they love, and I think that would be so tragic.
yeah. Absolutely. And there's, I mean, as you said, we're going to see people leaving the industry. And at the end of the day, it's sad, but it's okay, in the sense that it's not the end of the world. I like thinking about when in front of a dire situation, I like thinking about what's the worst thing that can happen,
Mm,
right? And the worst thing that can happen is like getting sick or losing your family or like those sorts of things, right? That's the worst thing that can happen. Even losing your house, if you still have your family, you're still good. And when I say by this, it's more like in a Buddhist Zen way of thinking about, okay, I see this as a huge problem right now, but at the end of the day, at the end of my life, what am I going to remember?
yeah,
That the industry mistreated me, and I was stuck in that situation and was a victim, and I had to work as a bus driver for some time, but I came back to it. I came back to the industry, and then I won because I really wanted it. So my point is, if people really want it,
yeah,
they must just like learn, keep on learning, being involved, network. And yeah, it's possible that you might have to do something else on the side for now. It's possible that, things will be a little bit complicated and tricky, but still find time to be with your loved one, find time to be with your family, spend time with your kids, put down the phone once in a while, do those kind of things where it sucks to be broke. It really sucks to be broke.
yeah,
But there's a place in which things go around and nothing lasts forever.
it's true.
Right? So I mean, like, people just must like they must hang on, keep on working on their craft, keep on your learning new tools, and always thinking, what can I do about this situation? I have a leadership certification as a coach. And when I was doing my training, the head coach that was training us, his favorite question was always, they were working like big leaders from like Fortune 500 companies and those sorts of things, like people that are very high up. And they would complain about their boss or the employees and all those sorts of things. And the question my coach was asking them is, in this situation, what do you own?
Mm,
And I think that's very important to be like, okay, what do I own in this situation? I don't own anything about the industry fluctuations. I don't own anything about this. I cannot control when I'm going to go back to work, but I can show up for myself, for my family. If I have to drive an Uber for a bit of time, God forbid, but like if I have to do this, but I'm still so passionate about what I do in the industry, do I take some time or one day to work on my craft, to put my stuff online so that people see it? Do I get engaged on LinkedIn so people see where I am, what
yeah,
I do? Because the people that will find jobs are the ones that are putting themselves out there and being like, hey, I'm available. This is what I do. That's what I have to offer. That's what I can create. And the people that will make it, and I saw a post about this today, I don't remember from whom, but saying that it's in crisis time that people come up with the most creative solutions.
yeah.
I'm thinking about the company Anna Barbara, the Flintstones and the Jetsons
Oh
and
yeah,
all that, right? They invented cheap 2D animation when the LA industry in animation was in a slump. Like the Disney movies were too expensive. They just came up. It was like in the 50s, like the Disney movies were too expensive to make. The economy was not great. And Anna and Barbara, they came in and they said, well, we're gonna find a smarter way to make animation, a cheaper way to make animation. But what they did, they didn't cut on their costs. They changed the scope of work. They made it simpler looking. They created an entirely new genre of animation that did not exist before. And
Yeah.
that came out of a crisis. And they were like, how can we solve this problem? And the problem is clients don't have money anymore. Okay, how can I solve that? But still make a good living for myself,
Yeah.
still provide good resource for my team. But let's look at how much stuff we have to do, and like that maybe we can create something. So for the people that are at home, and like people are so smart in our industry, so smart,
Extremely smart. Yeah.
right? Creative, smart, problem solver, figure something out, create something new, a new technique, a new something that can solve the problem of this producer or that client or whatnot, right? We're solution providers. We don't just create pixels. We
Yeah.
must come up with some kind of solutions, and that's what's going to make like a lot of people come out. And I'm not only talking about AI. Yeah, it's a great tool, right? It's going to help for a bunch of stuff. It's going to be great for a bunch of stuff. Once things settle and we start realizing how to use that thing without stealing everyone's work or whatnot, and that has not been figured out yet, but I guess someone smarter than me will figure it out. But I mean, like thinking about those kind of tools, the things that we can do, create new styles that will help the industry bounce back. It's going to bounce back. It has to.
Yeah, yeah, I loved your post too about AI. It was talking about how AI is not new, and it's completely true. It's been around 100 plus years. Like it's been a long. We've just gotten the Flash, in the past like couple years. And I say Flash because that's really what a lot of this is. It's a lot of Flash and not a lot of substance right now. And
Yeah,
I don't think people actually realize it because the artists who are using the tools, you can very quickly start seeing like, oh wait, as an artist, this doesn't do what all it was promised. Like this is all kind of smoke and mirrors over here. There's a nugget of something that could be really great, but it's not all there. And I also feel like a lot of people they don't learn it because, of the ethical implications. And there needs to be a distinction between the generative image AI and the machine learning,
yeah,
because I mean the Foundry is doing some amazing work with machine learning tools for Nuke, and we've had some artists that are just like AI, I'm not going to touch it. I'm like, no, 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 no. Okay, so you need to understand how data sets work. You need to understand, actually what's going on here because it's not the big boogeyman. And you guys are so creative. Here's an amazing tool. I can't wait to see what creative people are going to do with these
yeah.
amazing tools, especially like you're saying when they're backed into a corner. There's some opportunities out there.
Absolutely. And it makes me think of something. I'm reading a lot about Buddhism and Zen philosophy and all this, and it's great for dealing with so many things. It's so smart. We should teach that in school. One of
Yeah,
the things that they teach is in face of pain, it's actually more painful to try to rip yourself away from pain than go along with it.
yeah, hmm,
And right now, AI is scary and it's a big pain. But the best way to deal with that is to go with that pain. And I'm
yeah,
not saying don't accept it blindly or don't, I'm not saying that. No, it's like it's a pain. Learn to accept the pain, go
yeah.
along with it, get familiarized with it. Because if you want to fight it, you better
You gotta
know what
understand
it
it.
is, right?
Yeah, this is exactly the way I think about it. Yeah, you have to
Right?
know your enemy. Yeah,
Exactly. You have to
and
know
that
it inside
not
out.
yeah, and not an enemy. It can be a friend. It's just kind of
Yeah,
being misused right now. I
absolutely.
I saw a post just today. It was a VFX supervisor. I'm completely blanking on the name, but it was a brilliant post about like, hey, VFX artists have actually an opportunity here who are learning generative AI. There's opportunities in the real estate market. You
Mhm.
have all of these realtors who have to pay thousands of dollars to stage a house, you guys are building this tech right now that you could say, hey, you don't have to spend $1,000. You have to spend a couple $100, and I'll be able to generate these dressed homes. And now you have a business. Now you have these repeat clients because you're solving a pain point. You're
Exactly.
solving a problem. They know you. It's a local, they look at you like you're a wizard because you're really, really smart.
Yeah,
And VFX artists are really, really smart, and they're creative, and they can figure ways out of this stuff. And I think that mindset is what's going to get us through these kind of doldrum periods. And
absolutely.
you
And
know,
diversify, as you said, the thing is animation and the skills that we have, NCG or whatever tools we use, we must think about what other applications those tools can have.
yeah,
Because somehow we fell into, and that goes back to your original question about people that are like freelancers and starting to do their own thing. And I think it took too long before more people started doing that. And I think that's the future. The future, not only in our industry, but in a lot of uh, technologically related industry where people can work from home. There's going to be more and more and more and more freelancers and solopreneurs. That's going
yeah.
to become the norm, right? Because you're just going to be dealing with a bunch of clients. But my point with this is that it is unfair. We fell into a collective lie, which was the studio would tell you you have a permanent position until they didn't have any more shows and they told you you're laid off, and then you're pissed off because you're like, I thought I had a permanent position.
Yeah, it said
Right?
permanent.
It, the thing is, that's a collective lie because the studio, like, they want to keep you forever, but they cannot make that promise.
Yeah,
They're not allowed to tell you you have a permanent position because
yeah,
they don't know, because the industry is too much in flux, because things change, because sales cycles of animated projects take forever. They
yeah.
don't know how long those things will take. So they cannot warranty you that you're going to be there forever. So that's a lie. But if we are in an economy, a structure, an industry, talking about rebuilding the industry, where we're like, everyone is freelancers, that we teach in animation school, not
How to
only
be
the
a
tools,
freelancer. Yeah,
how to be a freelancer,
yeah,
right?
100%. Yeah, and there's a whole. I hope you do a course on that because that is a. I mean, everything. I've seen some artists who pay a little too not too much attention to taxes that then get a nice big tax bill and they go,
Whoops.
"Whoa, what's this business aspect of it?" And they're shocked. And it's just because they weren't mentored, they weren't told, they weren't instructed, and they get in these really bad spots that if they were just told, like it could be a really big thing.
There's definitely something in there and something I've been thinking about, but also in terms of like one person dealing with one client. And as you said, all of a sudden they're their own producer. How do you deal with those things?
Yeah,
How do you manage a client? How do you negotiate? How do you build that trust? What do you create, like on a micro scale of you, the
yeah.
artist, working with just one client? How do you manage that in a
Well,
healthy way?
and some people honestly can't, and I think that is okay as well. People that you know can't do all these different or don't want to do all these different things. I think we've been hearing more and more artists putting together these little band of roaming gypsies, almost these micro studios that it's the guys in the garage, but like on a it looks different this time, and it's they've come together to do a project. One person is very skilled at this, one person is very skilled at producing, one person is very skilled at compositing, and you put it all together, you collectively do a project, your overhead is extremely low because you
Yep.
can just spin up these machines now, like in the cloud, and spin it down. You have no overhead now,
Yep.
and then you go on to the next. And
Yeah.
it's the same industry, it just looks different, and
You just described for me. Just described the future of studios,
I think so too. Yeah,
where it's extremely scalable. So
yeah,
you're always gonna have like a core of leaders, of people that are building the relationship with clients or different industries. You're gonna have that. And those will be the people that love the business side. Those will be the people that just embrace that business side and love it. And around that, there's going to be like a bunch of people, like the ones that don't like dealing with all that stuff. It's okay because they
yeah,
can gravitate from, like, they're going to have like their top 3, 4, 5, 6 cluster of artists that
yeah,
they will be joining once in a while, like just a bee buzzing around, right?
yeah,
And
Just like that
For me,
giant bee that came in your studio. That was a
yeah,
client. You didn't even know it. That's
here you go. There you go. But for me, that's the future. And
think so
I've
too.
seen it as, because I was working in the studio environment for so long, and a few years ago, I was lucky enough that I was actually a producer on a film. So I went on the other side. I was now the client, and I was dealing with the studio.
Yeah. What was that like?
And I saw like a whole world of like different mindsets and how my colleagues as producer were thinking. And I could see that we always have to make like that kind of like bridge that gap of communication between the producers and the studios and all that. But one thing I realized was that for a client, getting that flexibility from a studio in the means of like, okay, we're getting late on something. It's not our fault, but we're late with some aspect of the production, and that affects the studio. And
Yeah.
then having to deal with that as a client and having to pay a lot of money in terms of like, a change order because you're late on something. And if only the studio, and I'm not blaming the studio one bit, because that's the by design, the
That's how it
studios
works.
are set up like this, right?
Yeah.
If only the studio could have provided me with the flexibility of, can we push back animation by 3 months without affecting production? Like, can we do that? And we were like many months ahead, but because we had people on staff, because we had contracts, because we had all those sort of things, it was not possible. And it costed production hundreds of thousands of dollars
Yeah.
that we could have invested in making the film even prettier. But because of that mistake that had a huge impact, if only we could have just had a little bit more flexibility. And again, I'm not blaming the studio. It was like by design, studios are not made to be that flexible.
Yeah.
But baking that flexibility into the business model of those mini cluster and studios can make such a big difference.
Yeah.
And we were talking about value. You come to a client and you tell them, we're fully scalable, right? We're fully scalable.
Yeah.
We've got like, we created all those products so far. You're going to be dealing with me, with us, and then you can like, we can always work things around, but we're flexible about maybe the time and all this. What we're not flexible about is the budget. What we're not flexible about is our profit. What we're not flexible about is not baking overtime into the schedule.
Yeah.
We're not flexible about those things, right? We're not flexible about clients that are not respectful. We're not, those things we're not flexible about. But what we can be flexible about, where we can offer flexibility, we should 1,000%.
Yeah.
And then people want to work with you.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
people tell their friends, I want to work with you.
And
Right?
it is such a small industry too. Like it is global. We're all over the place. We have members in all sorts of time zones that yeah, it's and I'm still suffering from jet lag. So I time zones are a thing. But the it is still so small and that word of mouth is very important. I mean, there's some artists that I know have been extremely have had very short careers because they're difficult to work with, and nice artists that have very long careers. And my wife has given some talks to some local colleges who are teaching CG animation, and her number one piece of advice is not like learn this piece of software, nothing technical. It is just be nice to people.
Yeah.
It's super basic, super powerful, and I wish we didn't have to remind people of that, but I think like it's that modeled behavior. I think be nice to people. It really will pay off and give you a very long career in a very volatile industry at times, you know?
Yeah. When I was hiring people as a producer, you choose people, you hire people, you build your team. I would always favor someone who had the right attitude.
Yeah.
Like, let's say like talent from 1 to 10, right?
Yeah.
You have like someone that has talent between 6 to 8, but they have an amazing attitude. And you've got someone that has talent 9 to 10, but they have a shitty attitude. Guess who I picked?
Yeah. It's a collaborative medium. You don't want to work with an asshole. You just you want to work with your friends.
And it didn't show on screen because then you're involved with so many other people, and you've got like groups of people getting together, and collectively they end up creating like better work, just
Yeah.
better work. I've seen it the other way around, where like I remember there was a team, right? And the lead was extraordinary. The lead was so good, it was outputting 50% of the work of the entire department by
Just the
himself, the
lead.
lead, just the lead, right?
Wow. Okay.
And then the lead decides to leave.
Yeah.
We're like, shit, we're like in trouble because productivity is going to go down by 50%. No, it didn't. Everyone became better.
Yep. High tides raise all boats, right?
Everyone became better, and not by a bit. I think that by the end, we probably surpassed the productivity that we had when the lead was there, because he was pulling so much weight, he was putting so much on his shoulder, he didn't know how to delegate. The rest of the team was a little bit bored because he didn't necessarily trust them with complicated things. But one day, like, he was gone, and he's a great guy, an amazing person, just should have learned how to delegate better. That's it. One
Yeah.
of the things that we never teach no one, right?
I personally have when I was younger, a horrible time delegating. You want to do it all yourself, and you can't, and that's a very big point. Yeah.
Yeah, so it's important that we teach that and we learn that. It's super important. Delegation is so important. Like, something I used to say when I was working with my wife before we got married. I was her producer, so I was her boss, and she was working with me, so she was dealing more with the team directly. And when talking about delegating, she was like, "Yeah, but I'm afraid that they will make a mistake." I said, "Let them fail.
Trust.
Let them fail. They're gonna fail, and we're gonna help them pick up the pieces."
Yeah. I'm as a father myself, I'm hearing a lot of correlations between raising kids and being in the VFX industry. Who would have
Yeah.
thought? You
Yeah,
know?
absolutely, absolutely. Well, having kids kind of teach you a couple of things about human behaviors also, and how you are as a person too.
Yeah, it is very
Y-
true.
how you are as a person, how you interact with your kids, how you manage those kids. And I'm not saying that when you are a producer or supervisor, like, your team are your kids. I'm not saying that at all.
It
But
can be a family. It really feels like a family sometimes.
sometimes it does, but you kind of get those kind of human relationship and see who you are as a person, who you are as a leader. And for me, that's why I'm such a big fan of personal development and personal growth. And I'm reading so many books on that, on those topics. And it's important because you always have to think, as I said before about my coach saying, like, what do you own in this situation? It's always like, I have trouble with that person. I can either aid them or think about, what can I do about this situation? How can I act differently? If my behavior changes, I'm probably going to get a different outcome from this behavior. So
Yeah.
maybe it's just a matter of changing our behaviors and looking at things more in terms of, not me, I have a fault, but more like, what are the behaviors that are causing this? And can I implement or create different behaviors?
Yeah.
We have such a we tend to identify with everything. We
Yeah.
tend to identify with our job, with our workplace, with our tastes, with our skills, with whatever happens to us. We identify with all this. We make this us. I
Yeah.
am all those things. But everything we do, the stuff I do when I wake up from the moment I wake up in the morning until night, it's not me. It's just behavior I choose.
Hmm.
So if I'm not getting successful at this area of my life or that area of my life or with that person specifically, well, if I change the behavior, maybe I'm going to get a different result. But if I just hate them for hating them, it doesn't change anything. I always
Yeah.
talk about this in terms of, because Canadian, we know about the nice winter, and now it's beautiful outside, but winter comes here, and winter
Quebec has
brings
an
a lot of,
amazing ice festival. I gotta say, it's
here
awesome.
you go. Here you go. So the winter teaches you a lot of stuff, because you cannot control how cold it is outside, but you can control what you wear
Yeah.
when it's cold outside, right? So when people tell us, "Oh, it's so cold in Canada," dude, I am the most, um like, I'm always cold. Like, I'm constantly cold. I'm cold in the middle of summer. Okay, I'm that person. But I love winter because I dress up,
That's
right?
awesome.
Because that's what I control.
Yeah.
So instead of bitching about winter, I embrace winter and I dress up.
Embrace the
So,
pain.
yeah, lean in with the pain. And if we only did that more, I'm not saying accept the pain. I'm not. I'm not saying accept toxic behavior. I'm not saying accept toxic situation, but you have to lean towards them and be like, what can I do about it?
Yeah.
And very often there's a bunch of things we can do. And sometimes the best thing we can do is to get out.
Yeah.
Right. And
Or
that's what we do.
or I will say here, this reminds me of another post that you did. Like I live off of post-its. I don't know about you. It's an organizational tool of mine.
I do
But
that too.
I saw your. Can you read? here to stay.
Yeah,
I love here, I'll put that on. I love that post because I think more people need to make that decision for themselves.
yeah,
Do they want to stay and rebuild? Do they want to go? That's okay. There's a lot of different ways you can apply these skills,
yeah,
and not being miserable and feeding into the toxic echo chambers. It's very internal, that are online. If we start having these conversations, we start talking about what's good for me, I think we're going to build a better industry in the end.
yeah, absolutely. And you've said it, like we're feeding off those feelings. You can feed off, like we can be attached to negative feelings as much we can be attached to positive ones. And at some
Yeah.
point there's kind of like, and you see people bitching online on LinkedIn about the industry, and then you get reeled up and you start writing a hate email or a
Yeah.
hate post about how bad the clients are, how bad the industry is. And I'm like, things are not great. Like, let's be honest, they're not
Yeah, they're
great.
not great. Yeah.
But can we help each other by sharing knowledge, sharing what works, like the tip that you just shared now about, like, people in the CG that are good with environments or AI, and that can like help realtors set up. I mean, like, that's a brilliant idea, but that's
Yeah.
the kind of information that we must share, so people are like, oh wait, maybe I
I
don't
never
have to
thought.
become a, I never thought about it, I don't have to become a bus driver, I can do
Yeah.
that instead,
Yeah,
right?
you can help people. That was one of the biggest reasons why we wanted to restart VFX Talk. It was a crazy idea. I didn't even think people remembered it, but they did. And it was all about like, man, we need a community again, and we need to
Yeah,
talk, because like we live in a post studio world. It's just what we do now. I like the hybrid approach, but it's not everybody's able to. Remote work opens up all these opportunities, but we started losing that community.
yeah,
And I think people started getting confused that Reddit and LinkedIn are not our community. Like, that's not that's not really what the community is. Us having these conversations like
yeah,
this. And I can't thank you enough for taking your time out on a Monday, breaking your rule about no Monday meetings, and offering this information to people, because I really think it's going to help people change their mindset, keep some gas in the tank so they can keep going. Because you know, I hated seeing posts about people saying like, should I even get into this industry?
yeah.
Is it even worth it?
Mm.
And then have people jump in and say, no. I'm like, don't. I'm like, I love visual effects. I love CG. I don't want it to go away. I want new voices coming in. I want that new generation to grow up the right way
Yeah,
and have that right mentality so we can build a better CG community, and I have a lot of love for Montreal. My first job was in Montreal. I have a lot of friends up in Montreal, so more power to Montreal, man. I
yeah.
hope you guys get through this tax credit issue, and
It's
you know,
like, there's a reason for everything, and I am sure that people will get through it. And there's so many extremely talented people over here that
there
will
are,
figure it out, right? They will figure it out, and the
yeah,
clients will come. And but we have to be audacious, we have to be tenacious, and we have to be solution minded, and we have to be empowered.
yeah,
Because, like, if I would have stuck with my, yeah, but I'm just an artist mindset,
yeah.
and not have learned all the stuff that I had learned, I would never have become an exec producer. I would not have my name on the billing block of a film that's coming out this year in
Oh,
Canada in
plug
October.
it. What is it?
October 10, 10 lives. The film 10 Lives. Check
10
it out.
lives.
October
Okay,
10.
great.
October 10 is coming out in Canada and the US. So, like, if I would have not thought that I can be empowered to do all those things that are outside of my, I'm an animation school dropout. It's crazy to say that as a teacher because I'm a teacher now, but I dropped out of animation school and then I started working. So, like, my education level is not like crazy or anything like that, right? But it doesn't matter,
Yeah,
right? It doesn't matter. It's the experience, it's what we can provide and all that. So it's, yeah. I mean, like, we gotta push through, and we gotta, like, feel empowered, and we have to keep on learning. And as I
Yeah.
said, like, yeah, I stopped school when I was 20 to go start working, but I never stopped learning after that. I never put myself in a position where I knew. I'm always like, I don't know. I'll figure it out. I'll pick up a book.
Tell
I'll
my
ask
kids that
questions,
all the time.
you
Smartest
know?
people I've ever met are people who say, "I don't know." They feel
Yeah.
comfortable saying, "I don't know," but
Yeah.
we'll figure it
Saying,
out.
saying I don't know is the smartest thing anyone can say.
Yeah, 100%,
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah. And there's so much power in saying I don't know, because all of a sudden you just open yourself to learning something new. And that's the attitude that will make the difference with everyone that are struggling like that right now. All the people that are, you know what, I don't know about this.
I'm gonna learn.
I need to
Yeah.
learn. Yeah, I need to learn. Ask questions. Figure it out. There's a way. There's a way. There's a way. There's a way. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, I look forward to your next LinkedIn posts. Like I said, I really enjoy them, especially your business posts that they talk about building the business. I find that very fascinating, being an artist in the industry for as long as it is. So I look forward to your next one. I'm going to post your link in the description of this so everybody else can follow you too for this great advice, and can check out your courses, because I think such a value. I mean, I love people offering this type of advice, because right now that, I mean, we have everything at our fingertips, and the people in this industry are probably some of the most generous people
Yeah.
that I've ever met, especially with information. There's nobody hoards it. Nobody says, you know, like, it's all mine. I'm not going to tell you because you're going to take my. It's never like that. Everybody just loves to share, and I really applaud you for sharing all this stuff, because it's such a huge help to the industry. And yeah,
you make my day. And if I can ask something to your community,
please,
if anyone has an idea for a course, they're like, I want to learn about this, I want to know this, bring it on.
I got some myself. I'll send you an email.
Send me an email, because that's what we want to do. We want to be able to supply to the animation and VFX industry the knowledge that they're looking for.
Yeah.
You know, that's important.
I'm putting together some courses right now for FX PhD, and it's very nuke side. I would love to see this type of stuff like on FX PhD and those sites as well. But I mean, yeah, it's so valuable. So and the power of community too. I love your asking for advice, because I know there's some very smart people out there that have fantastic ideas, you know, and great questions.
You know what I hate? Feeling like the smartest person in the room. I hate that.
Me too, man.
So much. So much. And every time I did feel like the smartest person in the room, I left.
Yep. That's the time to go.
I don't like that feeling. Yeah, exactly. Time to go. You're so amazing. And thank you for doing that. I mean, this is great.
Please.
You're a great host. I want to keep on talking with you. I want to be friends with you. So if you come to Montreal anytime this year, let me know and we can go have a beer.
Will do. We'll have to do another conversation down the road too, because
anytime.
I've been amazed too of you know, reaching out, the power of reaching out. So many people have said yes. We're like, yeah, sure, I'll talk. And I can't thank you enough. So let's definitely stay in touch.
Next time with my wife, she's gonna blow you away as well.
We'll have a blast. It'll be great.
That's good. Amazing. Thank you so much, Doug.
Have a good night, okay?
Yeah, you too. Go rest.
Yeah, I will. See you.
Bye.
Bye.